Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis. The success of camp hinges on the success of our staff. How do you set them up so that they can do the job that you need safely and feel like they have had an amazing summer?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
A big thanks to our sponsors who make the CampHacker podcast possible. You don't lead camp because you love the office, right? UltraCamp has everything you need to manage your program so you can spend more time doing what you love. Manage staff, register campers, take payments, and direct communication all in one place. Find out more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
Hello, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast, brought to you by UltraCamp and 5 Minute Fridays. My name is Travis Allison. I am a summer camp marketing and strategy consultant.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Hudson. I am a camp consultant and the founder and director of Camp Highlight, a sleepaway camp for kids who have LGBTQ plus star parents.
And you're a star, Chris.
Aww.
And my name is Gabrielle. I'm one of the camp directors at Camp Aura, which is an all-girls camp in Laurentian Mountains, and we focus on creating a positive environment for gender minorities.
Welcome to both of you. Joe may be able to join us. As you may recall from the last episode, we're having trouble with Joe's internet, and so hopefully we'll get to hear from Joe. I think probably all of us could do his intro. So if you're in your car, I'll let you do Joe's intro right now. There you go. Hopefully you got in, didn't forget halfway between Detroit and Toronto. One quick thing before the topic, check us out, ratethispodcast.com/camp, and leave us your feedback so we can learn how we're doing, figure out how to do better shows, etc. Our topic for today is setting summer camp staff up for success. We know that there are pieces to this that we can do better. We know that there are pieces of this that we need to change, that we need to be flexible about. And so we want to spend some time thinking about that today. What are the boundaries we put on things? What are the supports? How can we explain our expectations well, etc. I wonder if, Chris, you have a specific thought about what Highlight does or what you've seen in your travels that works really well for setting summer camp staff up for success.
Listen, I've been talking about staff. I've been talking about staff. I feel like nonstop for a year and being really intentional and thoughtful about our staff and thinking about whole staff. I think setting up our staff for success means that directors and your HR or whoever your recruitment person is needs to really sit down and do like some mission work. Like, what's the mission around hiring people? Like, it relates to the mission of the camp, but I feel like hiring has to have its own mission. And part of that is like definitely supporting the mission of the camp. You definitely want people who can support the mission of the camp, right? That is the mission of hiring, is support the mission of camp. But also, what are you offering staff? I don't mean compensation. We could do a whole podcast on that, and we have. I'm not talking about compensation. I was like, what are you offering in the form of soft skills? How do you market that to your staff? And what are your expectations, both the negotiables and the non-negotiables, and not being shy about sharing those? I think, to sum up, transparency is good in setting our staff up for success. Is there an evaluative process? Share that with them at hire, if not the interview. Make sure they understand what you're going for. Like I said in previous episodes, it's like going back to basics for this generation. I think it's smart. It's strategic. There's a lot of education that's been missed for the pandemic and other reasons. And I think spending time on that is setting our staff up for success. And we've mentioned this on the last episode, is that like the job is changing. Kids are different. And we have got to acknowledge that, communicate that to our incoming and existing staff, and support them. And I have ideas about that, but I've been talking too long. I want to know what Gabz thinks about this topic. I stay up late at night wondering what Gabz thinks about this topic.
Thanks, Chris. I was soaking up everything you were saying, and I'm happy that you have thoughts on how to do some of the things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I find this a tough subject because we can go in so many different directions, and there's so many different types of staff. There's staff that have been with us for a handful of years, there's staff that are new, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, the mission for me is number one. I think what I'm experiencing with a lot of my peers is a lot of preventative work. How do we make sure that they're onboarded properly, that things are clear, expectations are clear? And I think I'm starting to find myself in a little bit of bracing myself for almost like a car accident type experience in the summer. And typically I run into summers like quite excited, full of hope. And I still have that, but it's a lot lower. I've been hit a couple of times, and it's not just with staff members, it's with staff members' parents that have unrealistic expectations. I've used the analogy of sort of a swarm of wasps. Wasps I find interesting. You don't always know where they are. They're sometimes underground, and you step on it, and all of a sudden, here you go, you're swarmed by wasps. I think for me, I'm trying to look at how can I celebrate the staff at different points throughout their experience of camp, from the hiring process to staff training to throughout the summer, and show my gratitude, yes, but help them to see the work that they're doing, help them to acknowledge the impact that they have on the campers, but also my own fun, my own joy, my own excitement. Right now, I find that I'm a little bit more nervous and anxious than I've ever been, because I'm still learning the patterns that my staff are, how they're experiencing the world. And it's put me I wouldn't say defensive in them. I'm defensive towards them, but I have my defenses up. And so I want to see also how can those come down, and how can I bring some excitement and happiness and joy to the team that's coming this summer.
Thanks so much for your openness about that, Gab. I really appreciate that. I think we could we could break this up into 3 sections. Maybe the third one we won't spend a ton of time on, but let's think pre-camp, during camp, and after camp. Mm-hmm. Pre-camp, I say this so much, and yet I feel like not enough people pay attention to this. And so my apologies for saying this so often. But I think to have your staff succeed, you have to communicate with them way more than you think, and in way more different mediums. And it has to be in smaller bites. The expectation that staff will read a staff manual before they get there, ridiculous.
Those days are gone.
Yep.
Absolutely.
The expectation
those days never existed. Also, I just want to say they didn't exist.
I read that staff manual backward and forward when I was 19 years old, because I was what? A nerd.
Yes. And they still exist, and I'm surrounded by a couple of them, and I love them. I did not.
Okay.
And and I look at you, Chris, and I was like, of course you did. We would have been friends, and you would have told me what was in the staff manual.
That's it. That's how it goes.
We used to, during staff training, we would have 10 minutes, and I don't think this would work anymore either. We have 10 minutes a day, what we called super quiet reading time, which is something that happened at my public school when I was growing up. You'd have a month of squirt, they called it, where you'd have 10 or 15 minutes to read every day. And so we had super quiet reading time for reading manuals, and then we'd have 5 minutes of questions about stuff. But I don't even think that would work today. Good to have, highlight a section and ask for questions, etc. But anyway, I think that you need to be ready to communicate by text. You need to be ready to communicate by group chat. You need to be ready to like all of that stuff. I get it. It is hard, very hard to maintain all of those things, but that's where they are.
It's a lot of work considering. You're talking about pre-camp, right? You're talking about pre-camp. You're talking about pre-camp.
I strayed a little bit, but I want to focus on pre-camp. Yeah.
I just want to highlight and double down here is that everything that Travis is saying is necessary. The texts, we have a Slack group, like just the constant dribbles of information. It's necessary. It doesn't seem optional anymore. I love an email dump. because I love like you put everything in a single email. So if I need anything, I search for it. It just seems like that's not how young people are using these devices anymore. And my point being is that like, you've really got to set your mind to changing your ideas about how to communicate with the staff. That's pre. You've got to set your mind and drop these ideas like, well, again, like what I just said, if it's in a big email, then of course they can search it. And then when they ask questions, I'm like, did you search for the email? That's just not how it's vibing nowadays. So pre-camp, I think it's really setting our own minds right in acceptance, not even of the future, but of the present moment.
If you're not putting out extremely engaging videos that are less than 3 minutes, nothing's getting to them. And
oh my God, I hate that.
I mean, good or bad. I mean, they'll read text, obviously. They may not respond to them, but they'll hopefully read them. That's why I like WhatsApp, because I like seeing when people have read my messages. Even though, it's just me thinking, oh God, did it not go through? Like even I've got to the point I can let people read my messages and not be on them, but at least I know. And so you have to communicate smaller bites more often and kind of creatively. I think that's the pre-camp things. And even visually, Gab's going to come in and I hope she's going to say something about doing it really prettily, because that's an incredible skill that she brings to the World program. But maybe that's not where you're going.
As Chris said, he read the manual. I did not. I like to think I don't think I'm in the exact middle of the spectrum of these things. I'm a little bit on the end of not reading. But you have to aim for those people. And for people like Chris, you need to provide them more. So and Travis and I have spoken about marketing over and over again. Camp directors can be extraordinarily wordy because they're great. Most of them are great storytellers. Great. Put that in a blog. Staff can read more about that. But your first title and your subheader need to tell the information that the staff need to know without reading the actual rest of the text. If there is rest of the text, it has to be in bullet points, and you do need to use bold text in certain areas. It has to be a snapshot view when you're looking at things. Secondly, ask your staff how they want to be communicated with. This can happen in the first interview. It can be a part of a survey. Where are you most likely to receive information and respond to information, and how quickly do you think you can respond to information? And this sets an invisible expectation that they're to respond, but it also gives you information. Instead of trying to do the guesswork, figure it out. Our staff actually likes Slack because people are on Messenger, on Instagram. Some of them are email geeks, believe it or not. They're coming back to email. So that's not me, but that's some of them. But there's a general sort of consensus that Slack, because it's on an app, Android and iPhone, that this works. So I ask your staff, but it does create a implicit expectation. But for those wordy camp directors, it has to just in the first two sentences, the title and the subtitle need to tell you the information that they need to know.
And I wouldn't be me if I didn't point this out as we go from like pre-camp to at camp, is that you have to have a real diversity and equity lens when you look at your hiring, your materials, what you're asking these young people to do. Something like 25% of all human beings would be on the spectrum. And so when you think about blocks of text to read, right? When you think about emails that have a lot of feedback to it, like those are things that some people might miss easily. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they would be bad at the job. It doesn't mean that they're stupid. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that like the way that a lot of people receive information, there's a significant number of people who it doesn't work for. Like the bits of information, the constant back and forth, like the touching base via text or Slack, that might help someone who has attention issues, as opposed to the big email drop. You could always do both. That's the other thing. You cover all your bases, but you want to have a lens when it comes to ability. And you also want to have a lens when it comes to diversity around race, gender, religion, nationality. what your first language is, etc. You want to make sure that your materials are accessible because one, of course you do. And two, it lets the staff know what's important to you. And I hope those things are important to you as you move forward into the year working with the kids. So it's a great advertisement for staff to be like, hey, we're thinking about these things for you. And that's also the environment that we're creating. This is the team that you're joining, people who care about this sort of thing.
And my communications consultant hat to this is, can you figure out a way to learn from all of the messages? Can you figure out a way to see what works? So if you're doing email messages to your staff, you can, experiment with the way you do subtitles or, send them out to watch a video, whichever, and you know who clicks on it. And so you start to discern what headlines work, what gets your emails open. Every modern email app has the ability to A/B test, which means put out two different subject lines, even with subtle differences, and then it'll send out, that usually goes up to 30%, and then 70% of the people get the message from the one that worked the best. So that is, so you can learn this stuff. You can practice it. I mean, I acknowledge that there's another level of having to think about things on yet another level that sounds exhausting, even as I say it out loud. I know. But there are ways to learn from the stuff that you do, even if you're not studying metrics behind the curtain in an email app.
Exactly. And obviously camp want it's communication, onboarding, setting expectations, making sure they're filling out their forms, understanding their packing list, et cetera, how they set up their, payment if they're internationals. All of these things are, if they're taken care of, lower the anxiety of your staff members. They feel ready, they feel prepared. So one of the things that we've done this year is that we have a paid training online before staff members come. It's 5 hours for each staff members, so they are paid for that time. And there's going to be a base for every single one that is literally filling out their documents. So they are supposed to come with their document filled out. If it's filled out, great. If it's not, doesn't matter. And they're to upload it during that Zoom time. And so if they have any questions, then we're there. It's the same with their travel information, as well as going over their, for first year staff members, their packing list. So obviously it's not an in-person, but it's a Zoom conversation. They're paid for it. And we're making sure that they're as ready as possible before they come to camp, because it's also quite taxing on our staff on the other end when they're trying to find these documents or who's picking up who at the airport. But even more so, we want them to feel as ready. The other reason why is we want to limit some of the stuff that we could do nitty gritty online so that we can provide more team building opportunities and connection opportunities on camp in person. So if we can go over some stuff that we have to go over that's more administrative that we typically do at camp, I'd rather that we do that before they get to camp, so it's taken care of. And then we just have those extra couple of hours at camp to build community, to build trust. And that is so important, more than ever. From my experience, is building that trust, especially with the supervisors and being able to get to know our staff. So it's alleviating some of that pressure from maybe some dry sessions that are dry, and we can do it together on Zoom.
Building community is key to supporting your staff. Both pre-camp is a little difficult. At camp, and especially after camp, is getting people together to understand that they're part of something that's really big. I get it. A lot of camp, a lot of young people who want to work at camps, they come from other countries. It's like a one-shot deal for them. But also, and I think about how to pitch. I think about this all the time, how we're marketing this to young people. Listen, you might turn to a childcare professional, a camp professional, or you may not. Nevertheless, this is a great networking opportunity for you. right? So present yourself well, meet other people. Like, this is a community of people you should stay in touch with, because you all are in different countries. You're all going around different things, and you never know when you might need a connection. That's sort of like we're moving towards marketing this as well, because so much of our stuff has been like, build these skills, these very specific childcare skills in your work as a childcare professional, because we are so used to delivering to teachers or camp people or people who want to work with kids. And I think expanding that, when you specifically I'm talking about building community, you want to think about after camp is over, the community is brought together by camp, but that community doesn't always have to be about camp. It could be a bunch of young people who had an experience together and want to continue to stay in touch, give updates about what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. As we always say at Camp Highlight during the hiring season, when people get hired and there's general fanfare and they're very excited, we're like, are you ready to meet your new best friends? Because they cannot wait to meet you. And then we ramp up the staff. It was like, we found people who you're going to fall in love with. Are you ready? And on Slack, they go nuts. And then we throw the new people to them, and they like completely devour them with love. It takes some doing, but it's great, because also, why am I talking so much today? Because also, when it's time to reapply, that whole network is working for you. If you do a good job in policing it, because that's important. If you do a good job of making sure there are like ground rules and that people are being treated well, then when it's time to re-up, they might consider coming back, or at least talk about the work that you're doing and how it made the difference for them. So everything is marketing all the time. Like I'm always want to say, everything is a job interview, everything is marketing. So take the opportunity to like really let your staff know, hey, you're important. Hey, it's February. How y'all doing? Everyone check in,
Along those lines of everything is marketing, and therefore how we communicate to them, I just want to say, this is probably my last point about pre-camp, and I'd love to turn our focus a little bit more. I know we're going back and forth on the line of that. Be prepared to remind them of the important things that you need them to know in the moment that you need them to know that. There are apps and websites that you can use that will send out texts at the right time, that you can schedule them all ahead of time. Just think about the important stuff, like, here's when you arrive at camp, here's who's coming to pick you up at the bus, or who's going to pick you up at the airport. All of those things you can schedule. And so you've already told them this, you've already got this, I assume that you've sent them the contact information of the person that's meeting them in some other way on Slack or on an email, but there is a lot of value in doing it at the time. And I apply that to the summer as well. One of the principles of running a lean organization, so an organization that's changing every day and is built, you have a community built around change, is that places and activities and just places at camp have clear instructions. Like, I know that there are places that at camps where, just people love that it's clean and it's all, you can't see anything. But for a visual culture that we live in, if you have the instructions laid out, if you have the finished state and an image of the finished state, like, this building is clean when it looks like this, and they can visually check this stuff off, make it really clear, and keep things out in visual so it's easy to know when things are wrong. And those systems are sometimes a challenge to get started, but when you build the culture around even just the idea that your job, camper and staff, your job is to make camp run 2 seconds faster every day, then when you get that culture, you learn to visualize things. You learn to make it easy for people to understand. Again, that comes back to what Chris is saying. English may not be your first language. You may not be a strong reader. But if the signs are there, the visuals are there, then you're opening that up to more people to have success. I'm going to take a second now and thank UltraCamp. UltraCamp, we're grateful for you sponsoring the show. When you're a CampHacker listener, you can increase your staff retention using a brand new tool from UltraCamp. You can download UltraCamp's staff communication calendar. It includes pre-written prompts for free, and you can find it at ultracampmanagement.com. When you think about why you chose this job, it wasn't because of the paperwork. I was talking with the group this week about longevity in this career, and one of the biggest pieces of advice was you have to figure out the ways to get through the paperwork to get to the fun stuff. Because of that, that's why UltraCamp built a platform that really streamlines managing each piece of the details of your program. It's all in one place. So you no longer have to learn and remember several different platforms or programs to run your camp. With UltraCamp, you can register and manage campers. You can generate and direct communication. You can organize schedules and activities. You can process payments and donations. UltraCamp's goal is to help people like you spend less time in the office and get out more and do the thing you love. If you want to know if UltraCamp is right for you, they offer the free customized demo sessions at that same link. You can see their software in action and get the free download if you go to ultracamp.com/CampHacker. I'll throw it back to Chris. If Chris, I think you got a thinky face on.
I have a thinky face on. I also have a thinking face on. You took what I was going to say, Travis. We should really plan out what we're going to say, and
if we were that kind of people, should do that.
Give each other like little notes, because I jot down some ideas here on this piece of paper, and then I always end up crossing things off. So I don't know if I have anything to add. I think just in general, what I would say about this is that and it's the same. I feel like I'm a broken record. One, listen, we're in the business of building community. We do it for kids. At least we should, a fun, loving community. That focus should also be on the staff. And when I hear camp directors say, oh, Chris, these suggestions, this would take a long time, or we don't have the time. And I'm like, you have the time to prepare a magical 6-week Fantasia for 400 children. I'm not asking you to do too much more. You're already doing it. So I just want to put that out. If you think, oh boy, this building culture and this building community and this attention to, equity and ability, this is a lot of work. I mean, you're doing it already. I'm just asking you to do it for the constituency that keeps your place running. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's hard work, but it's great work because it will pay off manifold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gab, do you folks still use a pocket counselor?
Oh, yes.
Because that seems to me like one of those things in summer that helps give them some confidence and success and easy access to the information they need.
Yeah.
Do you mind just start from scratch in that description in case some people haven't heard it before?
Yeah. So pocket counselor, or monitrice de poche, if you are on the French variety, basically it's a maybe business size pack of cards that are all attached together with a carabiner that is part of staff members' equipment. So like a hat and water bottle, you also need to have your pocket counselor with you. And it has basic information from the schedule and to the wacky day schedules, whatever those wacky days that we all have, such as visiting day or opening day. And then also has information on the things that we don't necessarily do on the daily. That's no longer part of our muscle memory. So staff members, staff duties could be you're on sweep during rest hour. And so what are the first things you need to do? One, go and get the walkie-talkie. What channel do you need to be on? You check in with blah, blah, blah. So it's all of these steps that you don't necessarily do on a day-to-day, but it's going to be a helpful guide for you to do. And it's especially for first year staff members, it's really, really, really comforting and helpful. And then for staff members that have specific jobs, they have different cards that we add onto it. So anybody from maintenance to kitchen to programming team, how to turn off the sound equipment properly, just all in one little pack that they refer to. And we've also started to do it for our campers. And our campers I didn't know if they would like it.
Yeah,
they are obsessed with it. Obsessed.
Of course.
And our returning campers. And we have songs, but fun facts about camp, things you can do during free time. And they carry that around. And if you get, a good deal for carabiners with a little flashlight, it encourages them, if you're a sleepaway camp,
have a flashlight.
that they have a flashlight with them at all times. And the cards themselves, I would recommend you can full on laminate it. That's a job in itself, but there is paper that is weather resistant. It's not camp proof, but by the end of the summer, there's going to be cards falling off. But when they need it, especially in the first couple of weeks, it's very, very helpful.
I have got to interrupt you.
Yeah.
You're telling me that
Yes.
you hand out that to every camper and they have it near the end of the summer?
Oh, yeah.
I will talk offline about your secrets. If I gave each camper $100 and said, this is yours, by dinner that night, 50% of them, I don't know what happens.
Well, true. Absolutely. And there's certain campers that they'll definitely lose it. But we have bigger ones that stay in the cabins for those campers. So for the Chris's in the group, they'll keep it to the end of the summer, the end of their stay. For the Travises and Gabz in the group, they have the backup one that stays in the cabin that is tacked to the wall that they also use.
Okay.
Yeah.
To my brain, it's just one of those cool. It's like it's a tool. It's a tech thing that I would keep. Like it'd be my mental checklist. Right. Do I have my notepad, my pen, and my pocket counselor? But that's everybody thinks differently. Everybody works differently.
That idea.
But you think of it, it's also like it almost is like a cell phone with apps. You have the different apps, and each card is pertains to different. So the edges of the schedule is all in purple. The edges of like staff duties are in green. It's really built for people that have very little executive function. Yeah. And it's a tool that when we first started had 5 cards. It was black and white, and we did it by hand. And it's now evolved to pretty much about 20 to about 35 cards. But it's evolved into many different directions, and CITs have a specific one. But it's over the years, we have developed it more and more.
I love it.
Love this.
Such an amazing idea. I'm glad campers are getting it too. That's so good.
I love that.
Yeah, they really like it.
Any other structure that you would put in place over the summer?
I think sometimes I get confused about what we talk about on here and what I talk about in my 5-Minute Friday videos.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. Right. Because it's like the same topic, but like thinking about mental health needs for your staff and setting up a structure for that. I don't necessarily mean, this is my opinion, I don't necessarily mean having a clinician on staff. I know a lot of camps are doing that, hiring people to come in for like 1 day a week. As a mental health practitioner myself, as a social worker, I think there's some issues there that we need to like really hammer out before we start doing treatment at camp. However, I think having some sort of like feedback notification system, check-in system about staff, about how they're doing, in accord, along with, but not necessarily connected to, feedback and evaluation about their performance, I think is really helpful. And I would strongly suggest not mixing those two things in the same meeting, because then one seems like it leans on the other. It seems like there are right answers. But if you ask about things like structures, I think creating a system which pays attention to the mental health of your staff in this day and age is, I'm going to say mandatory, honestly. Mandatory.
And we've said before, like it's within the structure, it's making sure you have a space if somebody does have a talk therapy, so they can have a phone call or a Zoom chat, or even have a private call home. You know, not all spaces on camp are totally private, so that they can speak to a loved one, letting know that is a possibility, front loading that, and just I think and how do you come forward if you do need assistance? What is the protocol? What's our bandwidth in supporting you? I know for us, we have somebody that they can talk to figure out who they could talk to. So that person doesn't take on the weight of being that counsel, but they're there to figure out what are perhaps the main issues. Is it specific? Is it acute? Or is it a long-term chronic? And they facilitate that. Exactly, Travis.
Yeah. I think I would also set up stuff to make sure that evaluations, formally and informally, happen a lot more than you expect. Just lots of positive reinforcement. Also systems for success. As a supervisor, I would demand that my supervisors keep a checklist of the people they're responsible for and show me halfway through the week and at the end of the week that they have checked off that they have had at least one conversation with that person. Doesn't have to be, how's your job going? It's just one focused conversation on that person through a week. And so I'd want to know, because I'm trying to set up my supervisors for success, I'm going to do it midweek and just make sure that they're on the right pace, that they're going to get to have those times. Just that simple act of having a conversation with someone using their name, making that person feel seen, can do all of these things that are so really important.
And with that, for supervisors, one of the pieces that I ask them to reflect on at the midway point of every week is who are you looking forward to see and who are you sort of avoiding, and even if you're not physically avoiding them, but mentally, emotionally. And it's just it's a quick talking point so that we can problem solve that avoidance. And sometimes you're not aware because camp is so busy. So having that mini reflection time that you can have with your supervisors to do that then can allow for some meaningful interactions with their staff members. And
I want to say, I do not like suggesting solutions that are like, well, have more staff, because we would be fully staffed if we had our choice. However, I do want to point out that if we are talking about setting our staff up for success, having an appropriate supervisory level, having enough supervisors for the staff that you have is key. Because I have visited quite a few camps where they have like 114 people, 150 people on staff, and there are 3 people supervising by line or by group. And it's like, listen, if we're going to be serious about mental health, if we're going to be serious about giving skill feedback, if we're going to be serious about check-in and building community, you've got to do a little better. I'm not saying reduce the number of staff that you have, but just, I'm saying reduce the number of line staff that you have, but increasing the number of staff who are supervising. And that's something to think about if you can't do it for this summer, like moving forward. Like, who on your staff would you elevate to a position where they are talking to staff, giving them skills, like figuring it out. I think when we think about staff in the future and setting them up, I think it's time to think a little bit outside of the box as far as like the way that we think about who reports to who, the way that we think about, hierarchical trees. I think we need to think a little bit more communally and think a little bit more communally at the same time, like thinking about what Gab said, is making sure that one-on-one time is happening regularly, daily, twice daily. Great. It would be great. The one thing I've noticed about Gen Z is that they can be a little timid about job duties. There's a lot of questions. They tend to be a little black and white, and being able to check in with someone, just being like, is this right? While I sometimes personally find that frustrating, because it's like, yes, I told you it was right 17 times before. If that's what you need to do a good job, for the 18th time, you're doing a great job. Yeah, that's right. Not a problem.
Excellent. Well, thank you both. And thank you to Joe for suggesting this topic. And I think it's a good one and important that we spend some time on it. What I want to do now is move us on to our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
I'll go first with my tool of the week this time. The thing that I have is a book from the author Peter Shankman, who has done some really interesting things in the world, but he's spent a lot of the last 2 years talking about his adult diagnosis of ADHD and figuring out the stuff that he does to be successful. He's been very successful before his diagnosis. And so he's sort of breaking down all the things that he created. And so he has a book out called Faster Than Normal, Turbocharge Your Focus, Productivity, and the Success with the Secrets of the ADHD Brain. I am just starting to read it. So from what I've seen from the skim and from seeing Peter talk about it, it is really interesting. I'm looking forward to going through it and finding some good systems in there. He does have a little bit of tech and tools things, which of course, I love, but some other sort of philosophical things that he set up in his life that have helped him with that. So, Chris, what's your tool?
Well, as you may know, listener, I'm a huge nerd. And I spend, and when I'm not podcasting, or talking to camp people, I am playing board games. And I'm going to recommend the game for you. This is a game called Artisans of Splendent Vale. And the story of the game is that in this fantastical world, this meteorite has crashed in this vale, and it provides this substance, and everyone there are like artists, and they live really communally and free and wonderful. And you take one of the roles of one of 4 people, and then you go on adventures. The thing that I love about this game, which I say is like gay Gloomhaven, is that each of the characters are queer in some way. Now, this isn't an adult game, and I don't want you to think that this is about, whenever anyone brings up sexuality, it's like, is this about sex? No one's having sex. Everyone calm down. Okay. It's just that the characters, on the cover of all of their books and their character sheets, it has their pronouns, they, them, sie, there, she, they, like, it's all there. And in their stories, as you learn about them, some of them are polyamorous. Some of them are in queer relationships. Some of them are pansexual and they just love everybody. And, my character is an herbalist, and they love their dog, and they have a crush on this person, and they're seeing like all these people, and they're really into their family. And it's just so cute. This game is absolutely overproduced. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. If you're a gamer, you will be shocked by how gorgeous this game is, considering how much it costs. Listen, the game's not for everyone. It's fairly complicated. There's a lot of components. You have to have up to 3 other people that you really want to spend a lot of time with. And you have to be a really strong reader. A lot of the game is storytelling, and you're reading from books to each other, like reading a script to each other and telling the story that way. Anyway, I've had a lot of fun playing it. Check it out online, Artisans of Splendent Vale. Enjoy.
That's so cool. For my tool of the week, I have multicolored zip ties. Basically, you can grab yourself a pack of zip ties. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding up my pack of zip ties. And what I'm using them for is organizing all of my cords. So the wires that I have in my office, where you have USB, USB-C, micro USB, etc. I like to know at first glance with colors, what am I looking at, just to help organize my stuff. But I think for a camp context, especially if you do have wires for lights and for mics and etc., there's different sizes of cords that we use. There's different XLR outputs. And what I like about zip ties is that it doesn't leave that gunk residue from gaffer's tape or tape that a lot of us will use to organize our cords. So it's just a way to systemize things. And it's also a way for staff members that are learning our tech to color coordinate the right cords with the right equipment.
I will also to add a little piece onto that. One of the things I've learned is if you're using this as a visual tool, a visual reminder, put that colored zip tie on both ends of a cord. Mm-hmm. So that wherever it's plugged in might be 30 feet from where it's into a board or into a wall or whatever. And then like, what's the pink one? Unplug the pink one, or plug in the pink one right now. That can be helpful too, just for simplifying things.
Absolutely.
Again,
both ends.
Save 2 seconds.
Yep.
That's worth it. Right on. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening and watching the show. Thank you to the 2 of you. And again, thanks to Joe for the idea. I want to take just a second to encourage you to check out the First Class Counselors podcast. What Matt and Oliver are doing there is amazing. I think every camp director should be passing them on to their staff. It's purposely built for summer staff to listen to. And they share some great ideas, and they're really thoughtful. And that's great. And I want to just say thank you to all of you. Thank you to our sponsors. And thanks for the evening, friends.
The CampHacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Camp Pros. We love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, a masterclass, from the Summer Camp Pros group on Facebook, at a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, we can encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their brilliant ideas and make the camp industry better. Thanks very much.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work. It shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable. You'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.